Welcome from Rosemead, California. This is our first broadcast from here, as we novices got here about 3 weeks ago. It was one of our big changes in our lives, and as I'm sure there are changes going on in your life. For example, I know school started for a lot of people, and the weather is starting to change. We're getting ready for fall. And just this weekend seems to be a big note of change. Change seems to be a big theme. Like in all of the readings today, the first reading, we're reminded to let go of anger and hatred, that we forgive because we are God forgives us as we forgive others. That whole prayer of the Our Father is wrapped up in there. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And then the second reading, Paul calls us, brothers and sisters, you know, that as we die or as we live live and die in Christ. That change that we have to do everything for God. We have to slowly change our lives and open ourselves up to doing everything to seek God in each moment. And then the gospel is the hardest. When Peter walks up to Jesus and he goes, how many times do I have to forgive my brother? It reminds me of when I was a little kid, going up to, maybe mom or somebody and asking, how many times do I have to put up with him? My little brother, who's picking on me or whatever, or annoying me. And Jesus says, not just 7 times, 77 times. And then you think, well, I'll start counting and I'll get to 77 at some point, and then I don't have to forgive him anymore. No, that's not what Jesus meant by the 77. That we have to continually, forgive. That we, no matter what, we keep forgiving. That unlimited forgiveness. So there's that change to forgive, but also to do everything for God that the gospel calls us to. But then today we all think of the change or more the memory that we celebrate or we remember today for 9/11. That 10 years ago, the horrific incident where more than 3,000 people lost their life in Pennsylvania, New York, and in Washington, D.C. How horrible that was and how it changed our lives in such a significant way. That atrocity. Watching the news this morning, it was very interesting to see the different ways that today was remembered. I remember on one news broadcast they were going about, security, how that's changed in the 10 years since we've known it. And also the fear and panic. They were talking about a firework was going off around New York City last night and how crowds panicked, just hearing the repercussions of the firework going off. But then also there was a lot of change as far as remembering people who had lost loved ones and the hope that they still had in their lives and how that they were moving on but still remembering and loving their loved ones. Those beautiful moments there. And then simply just what's changed at the site at Ground Zero, all those changes that are going on. But then for me, the challenge just in reading a lot of Facebook posts and a lot of articles this week, there's that side of never forget, but there was also a side that will never forgive. That was a little scary because Christ calls us to forgive. But I think it was put best by Father Iwanowski on lookingtosunday.com, where he says, forgiving isn't about forgetting or excusing someone. It's about, we have to follow God. We are created in the image of God, who is a forgiving God, and he forgives us. Jesus on the cross forgave those who were crucifying. He said, God, they don't know what they do. But then, so we're called to that forgiveness, because if we don't forgive, then we're giving them a camp in our head, we're letting them harden our hearts, and we're letting them darken our future if we don't forgive, if we don't move on. And Cardinal Sean from Boston also gave us a word of encouragement or a challenge, that terrorism usually arises from some injustice. So if we want to be proactive to prevent terrorism or to bring an end to it, we need to work against injustice. We need to bring about justice and peace, to be people that serve and go out and serve others and care about our brothers and sisters, so that we can develop that civilization of love, that we can really be people of God. And Pope Benedict, after the Mass today, which he celebrated in prayer for the victims of 9/11, said at the very end that he hopes that we don't fall into the temptation of hatred. So again, the theme for today is about change, and a change to be people of love and forgiveness. that we go out and forgive. So we ask that God help us to make this change. We ask Don Bosco and Mary Help of Christians prayer for us to continue to make this change and to pray for others in this time of grieving and remembering, but may it also be a time of forgiving. With that, I bid you good night.